That was weak. Weak.
Wait, you're right, Joe.
Thank you.
Where are we?
Story of my life. Good morning, and we will call the Thursday, October 20th Port Authority meeting to order, and we will start with our invocation. Do we have an invocation?
I think it's you, Mr. Chairman.
We're always back.
James.
Or Commissioner Satcher.
Lord, we thank you that you are good to us. You've been good to us. Lord, we thank you that no matter what comes our way, you see it coming, and we are still in the palm of your hands. Lord, we pray that you'd bless this day, that you'd watch over each one of us, lead us and guide us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
But I call it smell good.
I know.
Okay, at this time, we will open the meeting up for any public comments on Port Authority. Do we have any public comments? Going once, going twice, there are no public comments, so we will close public comments and we will pass it over to our Executive Director for the consent agenda.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. We have a relatively fuller agenda today, but we'll try to get through quickly because we also, for those of you available,
Yeah, I know, for the court, for the clerk.
All right. Okay, I'll repeat. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Welcome to the October Port Authority meeting. We have a relatively full agenda today, but we'll try to get it through quickly so we can go down to the ribbon cutting for our latest container terminal expansion. We can also want to announce that we have just about matched the Port of Tampa's container throughput. And next year we will. We're at 0.07% or less than 1% difference. And either way, we could put in an extra ship and change that. Only one ship would mean the difference over thousands of ships. So that's good news, and our master planners will be telling you more about what the future holds on that. We'll also have my annual evaluation. And then after that, again, for those who can join us, we'll go down to the berth for the ribbon cutting. So with that, and Mr. Chairman, I would ask for your consideration of the consent agenda.
Move to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Consent agenda passes. We will go to the legislative priorities.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dave Sanford, going to do the priorities, right? Or Virginia? Dan's going to do them? Very good. Dan? Come on, I'm Dan. Okay, here's this. Are you mic'd? There you go. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, good morning. Dan Fitzpatrick, Director of Planning and Project Development for Manatee County Port Authority. For fiscal year 2023, staff recommends 5 legislative priorities. These priorities are described in more detail in a one-pager briefing sheet included in the meeting package. For state priorities, the port works very closely with the Florida Ports Council, our professional association for the 14 active deepwater seaports around the state, to develop legislative priorities for the following legislative session. And the Florida Ports Council's top priority for the next legislative session concerns the regulation of drones and the modification of Florida statutes to specifically include a definition of seaports as regulated areas. It's hard to believe in 2022 that the statutes haven't caught up, but that's something that Florida Ports Council is very interested in remediating. For federal priorities, there's 4 items, and some of these are reoccurring themes from last year that we continue to work on. First one is reimbursement to the seaport, and this includes the inclusion of $6.3 million in the Army Corps of Engineers fiscal year 2024 work program to reimburse the port for work that the port advance funded over a decade ago. The second item, increased security funding. The Port Security Grant Program has had funding levels about $100 million for at least the last 5 years, and they have the authority to have that limit pushed up to $200 million, and so we're advocating for that. And then a similar item, the third item on the briefing sheet, is remove the funding level cap for security construction projects, and this is tied to increasing security funding. Because funding is at $100 million, the feds have a policy that's in U.S. code that you can't have a construction project with a value of $1 million because they want to make sure that they can spread that $100 million around. So pushing up the overall funding from $100 million to $200 million will allow the feds hopefully to get rid of that cap on construction projects, and for ports around the country to actually get important security projects done. Because most security projects, it's not feasible to do with just $1 million to get a capital project done. And then the fourth item is bivalve and seagrass funding, and this is to support groups in the Sarasota Bay, Tampa Bay, and Charlotte Harbor with seagrass and bivalve mitigation projects. And that concludes the legislative priorities, recommendations.
Do we have any questions or comments?
I have one question.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. One question, please, about the bivalve and seagrass funding. Is there an amount of money we're going to advocate for?
Thank you. I can get back to you with an actual number, and
Okay.
I don't know if we can include that in the final recommendation, but I believe it's about $13 million.
Okay, and are there matching funds that we're also targeting for that?
I believe how the advocacy is working with our federal advocacy group is that the state provided $2.5 million of funds in fiscal year 2023 that became available on July 1st. And then I believe Manatee County provided another $500,000 in August. And those funds are part of the story of how this regional initiative is trying to leverage federal funds.
Thank you.
Just out of curiosity, and you're doing a great job, thank you for all of this information. The Army Corps, have we had any luck? I know that for years now, every year we're trying to get reimbursed funds, and I know that I can tell you that the port has lobbied hard in the past for that. Have we had any luck whatsoever last year, or are you seeing anything this year to make you think this might be the year? Okay. He's looking at me smiling. Okay.
That was the short answer.
Oh, I liked it. It was a good answer.
You know, reimbursements are probably the most difficult items to get in the federal budget because, in essence, it's dead money.
Yeah.
From the agency standpoint. There are no ribbon cuttings, there are no new projects, there's no salaries to pay, et cetera. So every year there is a negotiated amount. It's really a three-way negotiation among the Assistant Secretary of the Army, the Office of Management and Budget, and the Energy and Water Development Committees. And they determined what percentage of the Corps' budget could be made available for reimbursements. And then the assistant secretary is then free to include reimbursements in the Corps' work plan. So, you know, this is it's a marathon, and we have been blessed to be able to get this now all the way to the assistant secretary's office. This past year, we got the approval of the division commander in Atlanta, the report recommending the reimbursement, then went back to the district. The district submitted it up to the headquarters. The headquarters reviewed it. They approved it. It's now sitting on the Assistant Secretary of Army's desk.
Wow.
So we've
That's
had
the closest we've come.
we've had a great advancement. We also have Senator Rubio and Congressman Buchanan going to bat for us on this. I believe they've both made phone calls to the Assistant Secretary's office. The 24 budget is what the Corps is working currently. So we're very hopeful that it'll show up in the work plan
Well,
after many, many years.
I just want to say thank you to all of you for your diligence on this matter. I know it's been many years that we've put this on our priorities, so.
Yeah, I know.
This is
Dan
the year
and
you need to celebrate.
Dan and Jocelyn have been working this. We also have another consultant in Gahagan and Bryant that has worked with the Corps and the Assistant Secretary's office that's allowed us to get to that level.
Great priorities
Yep.
this
Okay.
year. Good, thank you.
Any other commissioner comments on the legislative priorities? Okay, before we go forward for number 3 with our master plan presentation, we did not do audience introductions, so take lead to that. So we can know who everyone is.
Dave Sanford, Port Staff.
Jennifer Cowan, Port Council. Also, real quick, Mr. Chairman, before we leave item number 2, we do need a motion.
Great.
Yes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
And it passes unanimously.
Denise Stufflebeam, Port Staff.
Virginia Zimmerman, Port Staff.
Steve Abernathy, Gulf Steve Norton.
That's what that is.
Denise Tuck, Del Monte Fresh Produce.
Mike Burton, Stantec.
George Eisenminger, Port Staff.
Malcolm Edwards, Port Staff.
Dan Fitzpatrick, Port Staff.
Amanda Tyner, FDOT Seaport Freight Coordinator.
Abby Lindekamp, Port Staff.
Dustin Peebles, Manatee County Clerk's Office.
Good morning, John Corley with Atkins North America.
Mel Scott, Atkins, North America. Philip Herblund, SNME.
Adrian Seba, FMT.
Dan Kern, Ash Grove Cement.
Carlos Diaz, World Direct Shipping.
Good morning, Andre Dubois, Logistec USA.
Good morning, Charles Tillotson, Port Staff.
And that concludes audience introductions. We'll go to number 3 now, the master plan.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Yes, we have just about completed the master plan. The master plan planners are here. They're going to present to you the outlook, foreseeable future. It looks encouraging. You both, I believe, have received kind of the draft master plan report. And so with that, I think I'm going to ask John. John, you're going to present, right? Go ahead. Okay.
Just for the benefit of the minutes, Dan Fitzpatrick, Director of Planning and Project Development. In November of 2021, the port began updating our master plan that we update roughly every 5 years. And when we start the planning process, it's important to remember why we're going through the planning process and why it's important important. And in August of this year, we released our updated economic impact numbers for the port. And these numbers are from fiscal year 2021, and the most previous economic impact was from fiscal year 2019. And if you take a look at the press release, the numbers are exponential. We're up to $5.1 billion in economic impact that the port contributes to the United States economy. In state and local taxes, $93 million annually. And so when we start this planning process, it's about jobs and creating economic activity for Florida and for the United States economy. And how we do that is we collect revenues, and we immediately reinvest every single dollar back into infrastructure to maximize our impact. And so the master planning process allows us to identify the best path for investing the revenues that we collect to maximize our impact over time. And the planning horizon for our master plan is 5, 10, and 20 years. And we might include projects in there that we know we can't get done in 20 years, but we can at least get started on. We can get started on the permitting. And another benefit is that we can make sure that we put stuff in the right place now so that we're setting ourselves up for future success. And so prior to November, the port went through a selection process, and we were very fortunate to bring Mr. John Corley of Atkins North America and his team on board to facilitate that process. So Mr. Corley is Director of Ports and Maritime Sector for Atkins Global, and before this meeting, John was asked the question, how many plans has he worked on? And John has worked on more than 25 plans across the globe on a variety of planning topics for seaports. So we're very fortunate to have him work on our plan and facilitate this process for us. And so I'd like to welcome John up here.
Thank you, Dan. I think you'd probably turn that one off. Good morning.
Carlos, turn yours off.
Mine is. I think it's coming from here.
Okay.
There you go.
Is that better now? Okay. Good morning. Thank you, Dan. Carlos, thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you very much for inviting me this morning. I've been working on this now for about 10 months or so, and worked very, very closely with many of the port staff, and it's been a really nice process. What's really exciting is that Seaport Manatee has a tremendous future ahead of it, and we're worked very hard to develop a plan that is very implementable, that's tangible, tactical, and something that responds to the market. Today, I'm going to talk to you very briefly about our project approach, what the results of the market study were, a little bit of capacity analysis and what's needed, what the 20-year vision looks like, and then how that translates down to a 5-year and a 10-year capital plan, and then we'll touch on economic impacts. The master planning process was a 5-step process where we started with an assessment of the existing market conditions. What does the future hold in terms of volume opportunities across all cargo business lines? And then followed by an assessment of the facilities in terms of what is it capable of doing? And then what do you need? And then how do you translate that into new facilities in step 3? Then we talk a little bit about ensuring that what we are proposing can in fact be implementable and compliant with environmental requirements and other permitting challenges, and then at least develop a pathway towards that. And then lastly, finalizing the plan and the report. This is the master plan document. It's a little different than what you might have seen in the past. It's designed a little differently, nice and big, colorful, easy to read, and I think it has been distributed by PDF at the moment. The market study is very exciting. In simple terms, your container business is going to triple in the next 20 years, approaching 400,000 TEUs. The biggest drivers are consumer goods and steady continued growth in your perishable market. Your break bulk and your general cargo market, which is largely driven by forest products and steel and aluminum and other metals and bagged salt, is going to see a significant sharp increase just over the next few years, and you're experiencing that now, and then steady out with organic growth over time. In the end, it's going to double or more than double in the next 20 years. Your liquid bulk petroleum and your dry bulk cargoes are a little different. They're much more steady state, organic growth, and they're going to both see cargo growth up about 50% over the next 20 years. On the petroleum side, there is some potential for a little bit of downward pressure from the inclusion of alternative energy as time goes on, but we do anticipate that it will continue to grow as population density grows in Southwest Florida. Your citrus bulk, your bulk citrus juice is obviously a significant growing sector in the immediate term with continued ongoing growth over time. It's going to be at least 2.5 to 3 times current volumes over the next 20 years, and even more if you make some investments in an near dock juice storage facility, potentially. We were asked to include some study that was done by one of our peer consulting firms, Brumell Ahimil, who did an analysis on the cruise and ferry sector, and we've included that information in the master plan report. The cruise and ferry sector points to a significant, unique opportunity for niche cruise and ferry passenger vessels to and from Cuba or the Yucatan Peninsula. The analysis at this point shows that with the right type of marketing and partnering with the cruise lines, that 150 ships a year and maybe 400,000 passengers a year are potentially available to Seaport Manatee. We have chosen not to include a specific solution for that because that's going to need to be continued to study, but we've left space for it in the master plan, and we've kept it in the master plan as one of the strategic initiatives going forward. So what do you need? In simple terms, it's about capacity, delivering the infrastructure you need to move the cargo through the port. The way we analyze that is we look at each of the unique port operations from vessel arrival to vessel loading and unloading, storage, all the way through the gate, and we can compute what is the capacity of each one of those elements, and we look for the element that has the smallest constricting capacity, and then we look to identify what we need to do to expand on that. So it's like a series of pipes. We want to find the smallest pipe and grow the size of that pipe. In simple terms, on your container market and your break bulk market, the analysis points to storage. Storage is the constraining component, either open storage for your containers in the storage yard, and in the break bulk market, it's mostly going to be warehouse space. The other sectors don't have quite as much of a constraint, but what we're seeing is that with your berth occupancy analysis, with the berth occupancy that we're seeing, you're going to be pushing up against available berth space and utilization of berths over the next 20 years easily, and you're probably feeling some of that now. And so berth is something that's going to follow almost immediately, and it's an opportunity to expand capacity at the same time. So think storage space and berth space as your primaries, container and break bulk market, and then what do we do about the juice? Well, the juice you don't see it's here, okay, because the juice, there's no on-dock juice facility. All of the cargo is trucked off. So there was no way to really compute that, but there is a strategic opportunity to grow the juice business with investment or development of an on-dock or near-dock juice facility. How quickly do you need it? Well, break bulk and containers, you need it now. What you see in these graphs here is the market forecast curve shown in orange, and the blue horizontal line is existing capacity, and the blue bars represents revenue that's captured. And so you cannot capture any more revenue beyond the blue line. Is it a hard number? No. I mean, if you handle 100,000 TEUs in a year, doesn't mean you can't handle 100,001 or 100,002. It's a little bit of a fuzzy line. But what it does actually mean is that the incremental cost of handling those additional cargo units actually goes up and your profitability goes down. That's what that line really means. So container and break bulk cargo facilities need to have improvements right now in the early stages of the master plan or in your implementation. And then your dry bulk, the construction materials, and your liquid bulk petroleum, they can be delayed a little bit over time. They grow a little bit slower, but you do have space for them. So 3 times growth in your container business, approaching over 400,000 TEUs. That represents at least 70 acres of container space, if not a little bit more. 70 is a good number. Seaport Manatee, by the way, is the highest productive port in containers in Florida. We did a side analysis, and we were showing that in 2021, on your footprint of container operations, you were between about 40% and 70% greater than your other peer ports in Florida. In 2022, if you hit your numbers as forecast now, they'll be over 100% greater in terms of productivity, which is TEUs per acre per year. So, you know, that's a great job.
Yay.
Your break bulk terminals, you need to have warehouse space, and open storage space. Your juice business, we need to find a way to give a dedicated berth to the juice vessels and develop an on-dock juice storage facility or handling facility to handle that cargo. For those who don't know, the juice ship currently discharges and it can be there for 10, 12, 14 days. And that takes up berth time and takes up gate transaction time and a variety of other conflicting operational, there's a better way of handling it. And then on your dry bulk and your liquid bulk business, it's not urgent, but we've left space for expansion of your liquid bulk petroleum tank farm, which will be developed by the operator probably over time. And we're looking to actually relocate some of the dry bulk storage and make better use of the property in zones B and C. The opportunities are storage space, growing the bulk business with the liquid bulk business with the juice storage facility, and talking about deconflicting operations. Let me skip this slide here. As part of our planning study, we did engage with port users and port stakeholders. We met right here, I think 3 times over the course of the planning exercise. And at some points we had some exercises that the port stakeholders participated in and to help give us some ideas and thoughts. One of them was the use of these planning modules that we call that are sized to represent different types of terminals. And we know exactly how much capacity they are and how many you need. And we gave the requisite number out to each of the groups and they developed these plans. And what you see when you look at them is that there's some variation between them. But by and large, the results were, there's some common themes that came out of there. One of the common themes was keep the container terminal where it is and continue to grow it toward the south. Try to move the bulk terminals toward the north. Break bulk maybe more toward the middle. It's okay to have some warehouse space, maybe a little bit remote. Cruise, nobody really could find a good place for it. There was a discussion on a yacht MRO, maintenance, repair, and outfitting facility. Couldn't find a space for that anywhere. And so we don't include that in the master plan. So the 20-year vision, what is it? Well, it's based on these following tenets. One is expand berth and storage capacity, provide the bulk juice facility, deconflict operations. We have cargo that crosses over each other during the day, and finding ways to actually create zones and lanes for cargo flow and deconflict the cargo is a key tenet that we were trying to focus on. We wanted to avoid rebuilding anything that we already have today. We have assets that we've invested in. We wanted to expand and make best use of everything. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. We do have some opportunity to make some improvements on some very selected facilities to what I call unlock hidden capacity or create better utilization. I'll talk a little bit about those. Lastly, we want to provide a flexible means for implementing the master plan. The forecast curves is economist perspective. Opportunities will pop up independently, and we want to be able to have a master plan that you can respond with quickly. But most importantly, ensure that the facilities that are developed are in the right place so that the port and your customers can best capture and prosper from the opportunities. I missed the last one. The last one was the opportunity to try to reduce the number of TWIC interchain gate moves with certain types of trucks that enter the port facility. So what does the master plan ultimately look like? Well, your port operational footprint roughly looks like the black area to the left there. In the future, what's happened is we've made it bigger. We've essentially expanded it. And the projects that are done are really on the fringes with limited impact on any existing internal facilities. The only places where we have some activity on the inside would be at berths 10 and 11 at the corner. To take that kink out of the corner, we get significant benefits out of that. Filling in at berth 6 gives us other significant benefits. These are the unlocking hidden capacity projects. And taking advantage of open space in zones B and C. Here is the master plan. the master plan in 20 years, what we look at, it consists of 23 different projects that we've identified, plus one more, which is the Twix zone realignment, and I'll talk about that separately. Getting rid of all the background noise, I'll just run through them real quick. We're looking to relocate bulk storage out of zones B and C. We'll be adding a new cargo complex. We'll be extending Reeder Road. We'll be expanding the drop trailer lot for the north gate, expanding the rail marshaling yard, creating some access improvements at Zone C to a new intermodal yard, which is a near dock ICTF. Near dock meaning it does need to go through, cargo does need to go through an interchange gate, but we'll create a new interchange gate to be right next to where we are now. And then we'll need to expand the south gate because we're going to dedicate cargo flows for containers to the south. New warehouses in Zone B, a new maintenance facility for the container terminal, juice storage in the triangle area. I want to left it available to create a new non-TWIC access road into the petroleum facility area. We've had a lot of discussion about that. It's probably going to take a little bit of time to sort out how that's done, but we've left it in the plan as an aspiration. Expansion at berth 1, new berths 2 and 3, expanding berth 4, filling at berth 6, upgrading berths 10 and 11 to get rid of that kink and getting additional berth utilization. That's a great project because you get a lot of things out of that, especially essentially being able to shift the ships. Say that 10 times. By shifting the ships out into the basin, you actually free up berth 8 and gets better utilization there. And then there's a container yard and expansion of berth 15. Or if you're looking for better matching funds, call it extension of berth 14 rather than new berth 15. Okay. By expanding out rather than looking to reconstruct any existing facilities, several things happen that we think are real exciting. We're able to create zones that can be dedicated to cargo and unlock some of these, deconflict some of these operations. Your container operations will generally just flow to the south, your break bulk operations through the middle, and your dry bulk operations and your liquid bulk operations toward the north. And with some thinking about the TWIC zone realignment, we can take our dry bulk, over the road trucks, the dump trucks that handle construction materials, as well as potentially the liquid bulk petroleum trucks, take them out of the TWIC zone and reduce the number of gate interchange moves as much as possible, and create just a quick turnaround without having to enter into the port. The same is true with the liquid bulk juice potentially. So the proposal on the TWIC zone is to move it up closer along Reeder Road and take out the triangle area, and by relocating the bulk components up outside the TWIC zone, we can avoid those truck gate interchange moves, and it actually frees up, it'll improve your operations at the gates as much as possible. So we've got this kind of concept sort of phased in over time, and there's some logistics to be managed and work with security to make it work, but we do believe that it's the right aspiration and directionally the right way to go. The container terminal that's planned, you see there, it's shown as 85 acres. It is assumed as a reach stacker operation as you are today. It's assumed to have space for both reefer cargo and dry cargo. It's flexible in its design. Right now you see lots of reefer space, and the reefer space could be dry space and then converted to reefer space over time. That'll be responsive to your customer needs. 3,000 feet of marginal wharf, that's ideal. 3,000 feet of marginal wharf. Your wharf utilization is tied to length. The longer wharf you have with multiple berths on it, you can maximize your utilization up to almost 80–85% occupancy, and get better utilization out of those facilities. So by unlocking or updating berths 10 and 11, you get that straight line, and that's a big step forward to get some better utilization along that length. And then berth 15 adds about another 800 feet to it to get to 3,000 feet. I'm assuming continued use of mobile harbor cranes for your lift-on, lift-off operations, radiation porta monitors on site. And this facility gives you easily 450,000 TUs, if not more, over time. And it can be phased in 5 and 10 acre expansion areas over time. It doesn't have to be built all at once. In Zone C, we're proposing the near dock intermodal container transfer facility. This is a rail facility for moving containers onto rail cars. It takes up about 14 acres. It's right behind us over here. And it is arranged with 4 loading tracks, 2 bundles, 1,200-foot long loading tracks, and will be paired with expansion of the rail marshalling yard by adding 2 more staging tracks at the marshalling yard for arrivals and departures of trains. In the end, we're looking at a facility here that has the potential to accommodate 52,000 lifts per year, somewhere around 130,000 TEUs. What the intermodal yard does is it actually extends your market reach farther into the hinterland of the country and also reduces cargo dwell time on your terminal and can reduce the interchange moves at your gate all at the same time. You get a lot of benefits out of an intermodal yard. Traffic flow is planned basically for containers along South Dock Street. We enter right through the south gate, go to the container terminal, be 2 entrance points on either side of the warehouse, and then your intermodal flows will go back up Reeder Road and loop around and create this kind of circular pattern and avoid some of these interchange gate moves at the South Dock Gate or the North Gate. In the north side, in the triangle area, we're going to take the dry bulk stores of construction materials and move them up along Piney Point Road. And that will free up space in Zone C and Zone B. And we're looking at creating this as a space that has a potential to have non-TWIC access. So I've extended Piney Point Road, and we're showing, this is just conceptually, a road network that goes into the triangle area to provide access for your dry bulk, potentially your liquid bulk, and your citrus juice storage space. And the traffic flows look something like this, showing with the TWIC zone in there. Theoretically, we are thinking that your citrus bulk juice facility, if the drayage from the vessel during vessel discharge is continued by truck, the cargo could enter into the facility from North Dock Street through a temporary secure gate, and then closed off when you're not discharging the vessel, and then you can have non-TWIC access on the outside. And the same could be true with your dry bulk, as well as your petroleum facilities as well. Storage space for warehouses. We've got 3 new warehouse facilities that we are showing. Expansion, the construction of warehouse 12, which will be 150,000 square feet, accompanied with acreage, about 11 acres next to it. And then new warehouse right next to it. I didn't give it a number yet because it would have been 13, and I don't know. So I just left it as a new warehouse, and we'll left some open space adjacent to it. So 350,000 square feet of warehouse space in at least in Zone B. And then up near the fish hatchery area, or in the fish hatchery area, a new cargo facility that is located outside the TWIC zone. It's a sizable piece of property. We're showing here up to 400,000 square feet in a single warehouse. It can be multiple warehouses. It can be a variety of different things. But 400,000 square feet of warehouse plus about 15 acres of storage adjacent to it, or open storage for cargo. So this looks like a fantastic P3 opportunity. I'm hoping you've got some tenants that are looking at that, but it's an exciting location. The North Pier will be extending berth 4, 600 feet to the north, and then going directly east will be expanding berths 2 and 3. They'll add another 2,000 feet, and then eventually berth 1. This area will end up becoming the core location for your dry bulk business, as well as break bulk business. And again, start to get that separation. What's nice about doing those expansions is we get open space behind the port, or behind the docks, that give you areas for staging cargo and temporary storage, things like your scrap metal operator. They don't have much of a staging area. This is a great location for that. It's another location there where berth 1 will be, where we can create this temporary security gate access for truck trade cargo from vessel discharges right to the dry bulk area that we're going to be positioning right next to it. So a temporary swing gate, again, avoids some of these interchange gate moves. So how does that all translate into a master plan? Or that's the vision. That's what we're looking at. What do we do next? What do we do in the next 5 years? Out of all of that, where do we start? Well, we have to start, again, go back to the beginning. We said we need berth space, and we need break bulk storage and container storage. So those are the initial projects that we're talking about here. I'm not going to go through all of these, but in the master plan report, which I have here, we detail Each individual project provide a description of all the projects and why it's important, and a recommendation, at least in which time frame to do it. Berth 4 is a project that we should be doing right now. The berth 10 and 11 corner, if we can get that done in the next 5 years, I think that's an important thing to do, because we start to get assets improved, and I think there's good matching funds available to make those projects occur, and you get some immediate benefits out of them, not just some additional berth. You get better utilization of berths. You get the right sized berths, and you actually unlock another berth with berth 8, all at the same time. So those are pretty important projects to do. The drop trailer parking lot is an easy thing to do right away. The container terminal expansion, well, that's ongoing now anyways. You'll just continue to respond to that. The warehouses in Zone B, the Warehouse 12 and the new warehouses, those I think need to be done in the next 5 years, and for exactly the reasons why I said. And we need to relocate the dry bulk cargo out of Zones B and C and start looking at building the new intermodal yard and building the new bulk juice facility. These are a lot of projects to do in the next 5 years and pretty critical. It's not an inexpensive thing, but there's various opportunities for funding, as you all know. We do provide some analysis. We've got a comprehensive financial model that we put together. There are millions of different iterations of doing things when you do a model like that, but we can show that they are doable. What you get out of that is you get an increase of about 20 to 30% in cargo handling capacity. The port right now can handle between 8 to 10 million tons per year. And there's two different metrics for that. There's what we call maximum and sustainable. The maximum is when you're building, build a facility to handle peak demands, like during the, during like the Christmas season, for example, or at other times. But you cannot expect to operate at that peak level all the time. So the sustainable number is what we plan for. We measure at the maximum number. At any rate, so we'll have between 12 to 14 million tons of operational capacity, which is about a 20 to 30% increase. In the next 10 year, the 5 to 10 year plan, again, now we'll start looking at once berth 4 is done, doing berth 2 and 3 expansion, and maybe getting into berth 1. That's probably more in the 20-year horizon. There's actually fewer things to do, but by doing berths 2 and 3, you get the space behind the North Pier cargo area that would give you more storage space. We'll look at doing berth 6 at that time frame. Continued expansion of the container terminal as required, probably another 10 or 20 acres. Maintenance facility, and then we'll start looking at that access road, and I'm hoping that within, it's going to take a little bit of planning, but in the 5 to 10 year period, I think, if we can solve that logistical problem for security, that would be something to aspire to achieve. From that point, that will give you up to between 15 and 17 million tons of capacity. And then the other projects that are on the list that I'm not going to go into detail on, that'll bring you up to 18 to 20 million tons, which is double the size of the port. And I'd like to borrow a phrase from Carlos. I think you say supersize the port? Is that what it is? Okay.
I know where that came from.
I have a bet with Mel that you'll say supersize 3 times today, so. Obviously, it's all about creating jobs and creating economic benefits for Southwest Florida. As Dan pointed out, the 2021 fiscal year, the results of the economic impact study that was done by our partner, Martin Associates, showed $5.1 billion in net economic impact just for 1 year. We've computed, and I won't go through all these numbers here, but we are showing what are the economic impacts of the 5-year and 10-year period for each of these different projects being done, and they're all incrementally additive to that baseline number. So it continues to grow. And the same is true with actual construction projects. There are benefits in the tens of millions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars for actual construction during the construction phases of these projects, and those are all quantified in the report as well. So, in summary, Seaport Manatee is poised for some tremendous growth. It's really, really exciting, and I've been really proud to be a part of it and help study it. You do have some immediate needs for facility improvements for the break bulk and the container and your bulk juice operations, and you have the opportunity to introduce some new service lines, particularly with the intermodal service, as well as supporting the bulk juice as well, and potentially cruise and ferry, which I know is near and dear to Carlos's heart. We also include in the plan opportunities to unlock some of the hidden capacity there without necessarily rebuilding a lot of infrastructure. And obviously, Seaport Manatee continue to be a major contributor to the economic benefits of the region. So with that, I would like to just turn it back over and say thank you very, very much for giving us the opportunity to do this study. The report, I think, is available, is online. I'll let Dan take it from here then.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. That very good summary for what we've been doing over the last year at the port. Hundreds of hours of conversations with our tenants, with our stakeholders, with port staff, about lessons learned over the last 50 years of the port, things that we would have done differently. And it's all boiled down into this plan that's reasonable and achievable. So in terms of next steps, we posted a PDF of the plan on the port's website. It's marked as draft. We posted that on the 14th. We're asking for comments through November 14th to give 30 days. We're going to actively be reaching out to our tenants to make sure that everyone's comfortable with what's in there. We want to get this right. We don't want somebody to come back to staff or the board in a year and say, man, I wish we would have changed that in the plan. So we're trying to get this right, and those are the next steps. Thank you.
We do have some questions from some of the commissioners. Commissioner Whitmore is first.
Thank you, and I'm glad we're back here at the port, because when you're at our county commission meetings and we're sitting there waiting to continue with our regular meeting, we lose a lot, and we get a lot more information when we're here. So I'm glad we are back at the port. First of all, I think this is maybe my third plan, and I want to compliment John and his organization. It's probably the best presentation I've ever had and most comprehensive, and he is shockingly so familiar with the port. And I just want to thank him for that, and I want to thank Carlos for the great job. There is a couple of questions I had. First of all, as you were talking, I was looking at our map that we have in the back of our agenda book, and berth 14 is an intermodal yard right now. Isn't there a berth there?
We have berth 14
already. We would look to
Right,
extend that berth, and that's our intermodal.
Because to me, the funding, like you had mentioned, the funding would be easier to get with matching grants if we expanded 14, but that's up to you guys. You'd even mentioned that, depending how ways to get funding, either you make an all-new berth or you expand the current one. So you had mentioned that. And do you know what your thoughts are, Carlos?
Well, again, what's logical, and this has been discussed with the master planners and internally, is that we need more berth space.
Right.
And it's equivalent to runway length, at an airport. You can only land so many planes, with a shorter runway. So it just makes sense if the passenger and the volume is going to grow, that we need to expand both north and south, and that's what we plan to do.
So good job. Also, I wrote down when you said we're leaving space for the cruise industry. And so you've kind of got a place in mind, and you're just going to leave that, correct? Because I know we've had people throughout the years. I know Congressman Buchanan has had people here to talk to us.
Yes, he has.
So we're still kind of looking at that market, correct?
We are, and I think that it's a logical extension. That we are, it's a diversification that makes sense. Just about every port in Florida has some cruise component.
Right.
We're not talking about a Miami-sized cruise facility or Everglades. We're talking about one or two cruises that complement what we do, bring in additional revenue, additional excitement to the port, and really that's really what we're looking to do now.
And I remember years ago you did have one, because I'd gone out on it years ago from the
that was
terminal.
before my time, but not the Regal Empress, Regal Empress, right? Regal Empress had short cruises to Yucatan.
Right, right. Also, eminent domain. Okay, in the previous 2, maybe 3 master plans, we've always talked about purchasing lands north of us, and that would be the future. And I noticed that wasn't in this. I mean, it looked like you're expanding a little bit of number 4, and you're going out a little bit more north. But I know in the future we've always talked in the way future that we were going to acquire those properties to be able to expand the port north. Is that not on this plan?
It's not on this plan. This is just what's within our footprint now. That doesn't remove the possibility that we could go north further. But I think in terms of growth, because we're not like, if we build it, they're going to come. So we want to make sure that if we do build it, we are going to have business for it. And the cautious thing to do now is to stay within our footprint, which, as John Corley said, provides, triple the amount of volume as it is without going even further. Because we want to time the purchase of land to what can be, let's say, brought into a business environment a little sooner, as opposed to banking land for 20 years ahead.
Plus, we have seagrasses in that area that we mitigated, which is like 1,000 acres, so we'd have to mitigate that.
Correct. Yes.
It was a wonderful presentation, thank you. And I would like a copy of that book, and I'm going to keep it in my office for the person that replaces me. I always keep it to reference to, and I've got your old one in my office, I think. So anyway, I would like that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Servian.
Yes, thank you. It really was an excellent presentation. Thank you. Thank you very much for all the details. So I have a couple of questions. I imagine the FDOT is here, and there's always good coordination with DOT and the needed improvements. I'm not sure who at the local county level is our port planner these days, but I hope that there's coordination there for any improvements that are needed at the county level. So that's just a comment. I haven't heard anything about port planning at Manatee County in some time. So just make sure that we give you, as the county officials, what you need. So the funding is in place for the 5-year program, I'm imagining, but not the 10, right? Or do you have funding in place for the full 10 years? And then is it dependent on the federal reimbursement? I mean, we're all hopeful we're going to get that. No, it's not good.
Not dependent on.
Okay. All right. And then also in terms of the expansion that's planned in the master plan, is there something that the county can do as far as, supporting that with the gateway overlay? I know that's been kind of slow to really develop, slower than we had hoped. But are there changes needed at the county level that will help to support this expansion?
Well, that's for maybe, I don't know, John, if you looked at that with the county. I don't think so at this point. We pretty much, though, when we know we're going to go over the fence, we notify the county. Of course, we do that with other departments of the county. But if we coordinate it, because as you pointed out, Commissioner, many of our customers are also on the other side of 41. And there's a growing footprint, port-related, on the east side of 41, and Salt County, right. In fact. So we need to coordinate that. But at this point, I can't think of one where we, if we do something, we would have to have a major powwow or issue with the county. I think we'll do that as projects warrant to make sure that we coordinate that, like we did with Air Products, for example. Come on up.
I could just add.
Hello?
So the 2016 master plan had a significant discussion about the encouragement zone and growth of the county business opportunity. Within this document, again, this is identified as an update to the 22 plan, or the 2016 plan. Rather than restate all of those types of goals and those objectives and take up a lot of real estate in the document, what we have done is we have augmented the report by referring back to the 2016 plan that all of those goals, all of those objectives still apply now. And this is a deeper dive into what we do in the next 5 years and 10 years to help achieve those continued goals. So it's more focused on, instead of a really long-term aspiration, the focus was more on, okay, what do we need to do tomorrow and the next year to sort of get there? What are the key steps? And that was the direction on this master plan.
Finish. Thank you. Commissioner Ball.
Stay up here, John. Yeah, maybe just better. Might as well stay nearby. Here.
Great report. Thank you. It was fantastic. And I got to tell you, all I could do was kind of giggle about the supersized comment because I was in a meeting in DC with Carlos, and I think you were there as well. I know you were. And we had a congressman that was really hitting us hard about Port Manatee being supersized and how important it was. So here it is again. And this time it's going to happen. So that's even more exciting. I'm glad that Commissioner Servia brought up the county. I think that's a good point. Interestingly enough, when you've been here as long as Commissioner Whitmore and almost myself, you realize and you remember the days when the county was very involved in the port. Well, now it's kind of like y'all have grown up and y'all don't need the county too much anymore. In fact, I think it's kind of shift. Now the county needs you, so that's really good. And then we get to be both. So it's perfect. But I would like to recommend after the first of the year, when because there are changes that are coming, I think that we should probably, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to recommend that we have a workshop with the Port Authority so that we can all really deep dive into this, get a better feel for where we need to go in the future, what we're doing, how y'all want to handle that, so that we know where you are in reference to this plan. Because obviously I know, I've been here long enough to know that this is definitely something we need to pursue today and not so much really tomorrow. We need to prepare for tomorrow by working today. So I think it was very good. It puts us where we had been wanting to be. I think it's really, it's nice to see the success that this port has had in the last 10 years that I'm aware of by sitting up here. And I think it's a very doable plan with a lot of staying concentrated on that plan and improving and getting there. And I think the funding will be there. DOT is a great partner, and there'll be other grants that are possible as well, I'm sure. And we've got some great legislators in DC and in the state. So I'd love to have that workshop sooner than later after the first of the year. It'd be awesome. Thank you. John, thank you. It's about the most productive plan I've seen since I've been on this board.
Thank you for your compliment.
Commissioner Cruz.
Yeah, just a quick question, kind of piggyback off of what Commissioner Servia said and so forth. This is a great plan. I love it, and we had a briefing on it. But it's all within the borders of the port, as Carlos said. We're not focused on expansion of land. We're not. This is internal. My question is this being dual tracked or considered associated with the fact that it's great, you can keep expanding the port and putting more containers here, putting more Jews here, bringing more boats in here, but at some point you got to get it out of here too. Is there a consideration of a joint timeline that's going to facilitate ingress, egress? I know there's talks with rail, which is certainly hugely beneficial, but to your point, a lot of stuff's going east of 41. Is there that's a effective death trap trying to get across 41 with these trucks? And if you achieve what this plan is hoping to achieve in terms of expansion of doubling cargo, doubling containers and so forth, that's going to make that all the more difficult. So you're going to get to a point where there's only so much you can cram onto this port, even with capacity, before you start running into logistical issues of getting it back out of the port. So we may end up with an underutilized port if we don't dual track that at the same time. And simultaneously, talking about land, it's great figuring out a lot of ways to import more and more. But again, it starts there creates more and more inefficiency if we're not facilitating ways of exporting as well and taking full advantage on both sides of this additional capacity, which has a lot to do with the land and with the gateway and the enterprise zone here. So are all these being done simultaneously? I know there's talk, how much are we dealing with the county, but I think that the county would 100% want to work there. I know we do, but to make sure we're dual tracking everything, because the last thing we want to do is supersize a port and then realize, okay, it's another 20 years before the county or the state or whomever it is gets around to catching up to you. It'd be better to catch it all simultaneously.
Want to take some of that?
I think it's probably a good question for Dan. I think maybe addressing some of the FDOT programs on Piney Point Road and South Dock Street.
Well, let me make some general comments first, and then maybe Dan can give some more specifics. So yeah, it is. You're right. We have to first. It's better to export than to import. We have, of course, Air Products. That is the mammoth exporter because one little thing is $1 million. So our numbers are going to look good because it's major technology being exported. There's other land acquisitions. One possible comment that I can give you that is interesting in Port of Palm Beach, quite a few years ago, was only 16 acres on the land on the water side. What they do? They elevated US 1. You know, maybe for FDOT, I don't want to give them a heart attack, but elevating US 1 is not unheard of. That would open up free without having to cross the 41, but elevate 41 to do that as an example.
Exactly.
It's been done before. And Palm Beach is the latest example. So that's one. Obviously, we always want to do exports as well, you know, because it's like a plane coming back empty or a plane going out half full. You know, you want to do it. It's in the best interest of the shipping line and the exporter to have that round trip. So that's a priority too. You know, with the county and coordination, yeah, as soon as we see something that's going to step on any, let's say, authority or opportunity of the county, we need to do that. You know, we need to make sure the county is ahead of us or at least join with us and not lagging because that will kill our business. And the great thing is that, for example, Port of Miami, in total, their total acreage is 600 acres. Just inside the fence, we have 1,100 acres here, plus across the street. In fact, the Port of Miami now is thinking of having some facilities all the way down to south of Lake Okeechobee to expand their capacity, to be able to capture containers from there. They're so desperate for land. And we are so lucky we have it right behind, you know, 41. So, any comments?
Hence the workshop.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you. I can address staying in the boundaries and also US 41. So with staying in the boundaries, something that we did in this plan that we didn't realize in the previous plans was if you take a look at bursts 3, 2, and 1 in this plan, we messed around with the angle, and when we had the angle of berth 3, 2 going in a southeast direction, it actually gives us 2,000 feet for berths 3 and 2, and then berth 1 is another 1,000 feet, and we get all of that. We get 3,000 feet more of linear dockage in our existing boundary without having to go over Piney Point Road. And the beautiful thing about that is we need 3 more berths, and we have room for 3 more berths in our existing boundary. And then to talk about US 41, FDOT is extremely proactive about taking a look at ingress and egress from seaports across the state. It's actually a statutory duty that FDOT provides access to seaports. It's their responsibility. Many might know that Piney Point Road up to our gate is a state road. It's a strategic intermodal systems facility, and so that's their responsibility to provide that access. And so one thing that FDOT is doing right now is using our updated data from that came out of this master plan, taking a look at all of the moves through 2041 and being proactive and planning. Do we need to, and these are examples, do we need to expand Piney Point Road by a couple lanes? Do we need to have Piney Point Road be composed of a different material, cement instead of asphalt? Or do we need to take a look at South Dock Street, and instead of having one access road that's a state road, a CIS facility, do we need to have 2 for this port? And and do we need to have a light on US 41? So those are some of the things that they're looking at. And I've got to tell you, we're really lucky in Southwest Florida to have District 1. They only have 1 port. So we're extremely lucky that they're focused on us, and they're going to make sure that they get it right. There are a lot of lessons learned from across the state with other ports like Palm Beach that needed to have an overpass, and that overpass probably came a little bit too late, and so FDOT is trying to make sure they get it right for us.
Commissioner Whitmore.
This was before me, but when the encouragement zone was started, it was for exactly what Cruz was talking about, Commissioner Cruz. It was because we were hoping that if we opened that, and also the TIF area, if we opened that port business would come flocking and we wouldn't have housing. As I was driving here this morning, I see that the residential is creeping closer and closer to the port because that didn't happen. So the whole intent for years now has been to utilize that property across the street to do exactly what you said that they're doing in Miami. Because we figured that would be another feather, and that's why the rail goes across the street and across the street of 41, so we could actually do that. So, we have the space. It's just we haven't had the customers, except we just now got Transmontane right across the street, or
No,
what
we
was
have
it?
Allied New Technologies, Air Products,
No, the new one that has property here.
World Direct. Oh, yeah,
Yes,
yes.
yes.
That's. I was going to say that was my
Yeah.
last one.
That was the vision a long, long time ago, that we were trying to get
Yeah.
more port-related business to expand over there before Miami happened or whatever.
Do we have any more comments? And I'll just wrap up just a couple of things. I like the approach of having the master plan out on the website up until November the 14th. I think that's very important. For the record, that gives some opportunity for some community engagement as well as the entities that obviously do work here at the port. I will say this right here. We quite clearly we have a bright future if we're walking around talking about supersizing. That's always something good to look at. One of the things that I wrote when the report, when you first brought the report forward, is the environmental challenges. And as far as looking at those, I'm not necessarily sure at this point, whatever those challenges are, they are out in front of us. But obviously, I would be interested to hear some of those challenges and identify, how we're going to mitigate that. I'm a juice guy. And dedicating, a berth for more juice business. That's always a great thing. And the other point that I wanted to make from Dan, when we were talking about identifying whether or not, we want one access point or two. With our growth, and this is just me, and I'm sure my colleagues will chime in if they want to. But just all the projections with our growth, I think. Some way, somehow, we need to be proactive and consider that second access point because not only is the port growing, Manatee County is growing, and with all the things that we have to deal with on a day in and day out basis, if there's an opportunity for us to get in front of that, I would definitely recommend that. So those are my comments on the master plan. Commissioners, do we have any more comments or anything on the master plan? Great job. Thank you, sir, for your work. Dan and Carlos, that's great. And again, the port is, moving forward, but we'll find a way to use that supersized terminology to get some good things out of it.
Mr. Chad, do we ever solidify this plan and vote on it in the future?
Yeah, then we need a motion. We don't need a motion.
Because it says presentation on the agenda. That's why I was wondering, shouldn't it be codified by a motion?
At this point, you're still
in the planning process.
So, after November. Right, got it. Okay, got it. Good.
Okay. So that concludes comments on the master plan. Carlos?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioners, we'll be back to you, and as Mr. Abel mentioned, I think it would be beneficial to have a workshop.
Yes.
I think it deserves a workshop, given the context and the whole importance of this going forward, not just for the port, but for the entire region, the county and the region. We are a port that serves all of Southwest Florida and part of North and Central Florida. So the impact of this port and what you all do reaches way beyond the footprint of the county. So it's important that we better understand what you would like to see, as it relates to us and as well as the county and as well as the region. The next item, Mr. Chairman, with your permission, would be my annual review that's going to be given to you by your county attorney, port attorney. All right.
Good morning, Port Authority members. As you know, each year, pursuant to his contract, the Port Authority conducts a performance evaluation of its executive director. This year, I received written evaluations from 5 of the 7 Port Authority members, and I'd like to thank you all very much for your time and effort in providing those. The review evaluates on 8 criteria, or 8 different categories, and it has you rate the executive director either as outstanding, meets the standards, or needs improvements. It also provides an option for comments. In summarizing the reviews, I'll go through each of the 8 categories briefly. The first one being business development. There, Carlos is ranked outstanding in this category by all of the members. The comments included that Carlos always works to bring new business. His continued success is reflected in the expansion of the port, and he's exceptional in all aspects of business development. The second category is relationship with the authority. 4 members ranked Carlos outstanding and 1 that he meets standards. Comments included that he provides the authority with the information they need to act, and that he maintains open communication and excellent relations with the Port Authority. The third category is financial management and regulatory compliance. Again, 4 members ranked him outstanding and 1 meets standards. Carlos is constantly looking for ways to improve performance, and the current performance of the port is impressive as usual. The fourth category is public image and community relations. All of the members ranked Carlos outstanding in this category, stating that the port is doing a great job in disseminating information, building its brand as an economic generator and location for employment, and that Carlos is the face of the port and has a general public image in all categories. And then category 5 was strategic planning and goals. Again, all ranked Carlos outstanding in this category, that he looks far ahead, which allows us to prepare for future growth and success, and outstanding in communicating the goals for the port. In category 6, leadership, all ranked Carlos outstanding for this category. Comments include that they've never heard a complaint, only praise, and that he has the complete respect of all that he works with because of his leadership. Category 7, job and industry knowledge. Again, all ranked Carlos outstanding in this category. Comments included, I can't imagine anyone knowing this industry more than Carlos. We are so fortunate to have Carlos with the knowledge base that he brings to the Port Authority. And finally, in the 8th category, judgment and decision making. 4 members ranked Carlos outstanding, 1 ranked meet standards. Comments included everything has worked as planned so far. Excellent problem solver and decision maker. There were also general comments at the end of the review that thanked Carlos for everything, said that it was a great year as we continue to grow, and that we look forward to touching base about goals and vision for the upcoming years, and appreciate all the hard work of both Carlos and his staff. In conclusion, these rankings represent an overall improvement from last year's evaluation. There were no rankings of needs improvement, and Carlos was ranked outstanding by the majority of members in all 8 categories. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, thank you very much.
We do not have any questions. We have one commissioner that will have a comment.
Yes, thank you. And I just want to reiterate that fantastic evaluation. And Carlos, it's your leadership and your interpersonal skills that really make you exceptional. It's clear to us that you care about the team, you support your team, and really that great communication is what makes you stand out. It's very easy to evaluate you. And great communication in how many languages?
4 or 5.
4 or 5, I don't know, lost track.
We're growing.
Yeah, great job.
We're growing.
Thank you for all you do.
Commissioner Whitmore?
And I wanted to thank you. If we all have to, next time you see Michael Gallen, you need to thank him, because Carlos was in Argentina, I think, when our applications for this job came about, and he missed the deadline. And somehow Michael had found out and gotten the application and brought it to the board. And so Carlos is here is because of Michael Gallen, so you really need to thank him. And as always, you've done a great job. I was here maybe a year when Dave McDonald was here, maybe two, night and day. And what we did learn is we need to diversify. And I was thinking on the way to work, at one point I think our reserves were $400,000. And then that's when the county would have to save us if it got any worse. So, good job.
And I'll just say ditto to everything that you do. I always make sure that I acknowledge your team and your support staff, and just in some of the meetings, you know, how prepared they are and how the meetings flow so we can move things forward. I mean, just bringing the master plan forward today is an indicator of your leadership and understanding of the great things that's going on here at the port. And in order for us to supersize, obviously your professional performance is supersized. Thank you for all the things that you do.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, I do want to point out that this is not my evaluation. This is my port's evaluation. This is the people that work with me day to day. That's their evaluation also. So I love to hear that. So they are encouraged, you know, that they don't have to look for a position, that they, that you know, we're doing it as a team, and that their efforts are being reflected in this evaluation. I cannot take credit for this. It's really, you know, a team effort, and you know, we had to improve things here. You know, we all improve them. So thank you on behalf of the port.
Okay, that concludes conversation on the evaluation. We will go now and open up to public comments. Do we have any public comments? And obviously we do not. We'll turn it over to you, Mr. Carlos.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I just want to go quickly because we're a little bit behind schedule, right? On the ribbon cutting, on some comments. Okay, so hurricane recovery was not a huge impact for us. We went through it, like most of the county, pretty well. You know, we didn't have any major issues. We were up and running quickly. The main issue would be that the gas immediately started to flow again. That happened. There was sufficient reserve, and so that went well. The FY numbers, again, as you heard, they're doing great. The revenue is outstanding. The container numbers, as you see here, this got stuck with a little pointer. Okay. You know, have grown again, confirming what the master plan is saying, to be able to quadruple those numbers. Those numbers are the same essentially as Tampa did this year, with maybe 4 or 5 times the capital investment. And so we like to be efficient. And as John again Corley said, we are doing about 3-4 times the normal amount that a container port is expected to do. That's again a credit to our operations people and our tenants that are making sure those containers don't sit idle here. They're moving out because they are commodities that you want to buy in the stores. Continue to grow the petroleum, very important. Every new house with a 2-car garage, that's a new customer, okay? So we're making sure that the fuel continues to flow, you know, and getting delivered to those stations that, again, continue to grow every day. And another Wawa on Manatee Avenue now, you know, they'll need a full truck or 2, so we're keeping track of that. We continue, again, to grow forestry products, whether there's fences or any kind of lumber, to grow what the demand is. We're demand driven. If nobody wanted to buy these things, we wouldn't be here. We're not buying it ourselves. We are trying to meet demand, and the users of those commodities, meaning, let's say, the distributors, Home Depot and Lowe's, are buying it on behalf of those clients. As we heard before, a lot of juice. A lot of growing juice. And in fact, I read this morning that unfortunately a lot of the crop was damaged. The citrus crop was damaged. That will just tell me that then, of course, I better raise those numbers because it's coming through the port. Yeah, it's going to be through the port. 23%, increase, almost 24 in operating revenues. Again, though unaudited. And again, now I want it to be short. From the start to the birth, we'd like to have you join us for ribbon cutting. That concludes my comments, Mr. Chairman.
Do we have any commissioner comments? All right, y'all know I am going once, going twice, third time. That concludes the meeting.
All right.